Hello everyone. So I don't really know how this video is going to pan out, but I thought, considering it's going to be 4 years without drinking in a few days, I thought it'd be good to just do a little recap on, the years prior to this and how I've ended up here. And I've just went to the gym. I'm in Cornwall at the moment because I'm seeing my dad's biological family for the first time. So I went to the gym and I'm just back in the car and I thought, why not? It's dark and stormy outside, so quite topical to do a video about drinking. So basically, I stopped when I was 26, and I've given a bit of a rundown as to kind of why I stopped. It was because it started to impact the people around me. My girlfriend was kind of really worried about how the trajectory I was going down and everything like that. And when I actually stopped, I'm just going to give you some insight into like how it felt for me. So I decided to give up drinking and smoking at the same time. And, I was successful for a month or two. I didn't smoke anything either, but it really started to become a kind of toxic and poisonous confusion as to what I was actually wanting in my life. I was quite often misunderstanding the cravings for cigarettes and thinking that that was craving for alcohol. And after a while, it wasn't sustainable. I was going to pubs, really struggling, couldn't smoke, couldn't drink. And after a while, I just realized I needed to smoke in order to actually keep myself on this trajectory of stopping drinking. And in the period, I was listening to lots of self-help books, Catherine Gray being the main kind of like comfort blanket for me. That was so unbelievably helpful. I'd massively recommend her books, The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober and Sunshine Warm Sober. Those were two, they were like literally comfort blankets that I'd listen to every single night just to remind myself that I'm going down the right path, because her drinking tendencies were very similar to mine. It would just be getting far too overexcited and just going absolutely mental on a binge whenever I started to drink. And then she also had blackouts in the same way that I did. But yeah, that was very, very helpful for me. That anchored me and made me realize and reminded me, that I was doing the right thing. I was eating a lot. I was exercising a lot. I remember I was having with my brother. He was very good to me over that period. We were going to the gym together all the time. We were living together. I was eating lots of kind of ice cream and cookies and stuff like that, just to kind of like quell the cravings for nicotine, and also to just give myself some sort of reward for what I was doing. I was kind to myself in the way that I would also allow myself to play games guilt-free. Anything that I wanted to do, I thought was okay as long as it wasn't drinking, because every single day that went past was a success. At the beginning, it really was. It felt like every single day that went past, something had moved in the right direction. I had another milestone moving in the right direction. That is something that fades. However, at the beginning, it's great to remember every single day is a moment of growth. And just remember that when you're giving up. Every single morning you wake up, that is progress. And that's a brilliant, brilliant thing to make sure that you remember and you focus on, because in order to keep yourself going, you need to remember that you're doing an amazing thing. And it's not easy. You're going to be looking at other people thinking, why are you able to drink and I'm not? If you know you're not able to drink, that's just a simple fact. You have to accept it, okay? We have to accept that we can't drink if we do not react with alcohol in the way that it does react with other people. Everyone shouldn't drink, technically, because it's really bad for you. However, if your behaviors end up impacting other people and potentially harming other people around you, you're ruining your relationship because you're cheating, you're causing distress to your family, you're turning into someone else. There are so many kind of awful reactions that could kind of be the catalyst in terms of like you stopping and understanding that it's wrong. But one of the games that I played religiously until I completed it was The Witcher 3. it was really nice to play games guilt-free, because with music and creative endeavors that you have, sometimes playing games makes you feel as though you shouldn't really be doing it. There's a better way to be spending your time. So during that period, you know, I felt so comfortable playing games, and I didn't feel any sort of guilt, because it was helping me do what I needed to do. It was allowing me to hyper focus and engage on something that I found enjoyable, which took my mind off of the other things. I did kind of try and go to as much of the social events I was invited to as possible. I didn't really enjoy them much at first. You know, you're sitting in a pub for hours, and it was incredibly clear how people were acting when they were drunk, because I'd never got to see that when I was drinking, because I was always very drunk myself and blurry, and then forgetting the moments that I then got to see my friends, my loved ones, in a state which I'd never really been able to process previously, because I was too drunk to really see it. So that was another thing that was pretty shocking, because like I realized I felt even more like an outsider, not only because I felt like an outsider anyway, I felt like an outsider because I wasn't drinking. And then also you don't feel like you can really get involved in the joke. As Morrissey said, the joke isn't funny anymore. And after a certain point of the night, when everyone is really pissed, the jokes that are being thrown around, they're actually not very funny. They're very loud, and the laughter is very real from their perspective, but I'm not finding it very funny. And that's a kind of sad truth, that you know, when everyone is the most hysterical and I guess loose, the laughs are there, but you don't really feel as though you can integrate, which is annoying at first, but you realize that that's just the way that it is, and you start to understand how alcohol reacts with people, because it's not like a very slow progression into being pissed. It's very quick, you know. It's like the cup suddenly runneth over, and once it does, everyone is suddenly pissed. And yeah, that was quite shocking at first. You know, I thought that it would be a more gradual kind of progression into being drunk, but it seems to be, people seem normal and then they seem really pissed out of nowhere. And that was quite shocking at first. Yeah, so I would often have these times where I actually had to just go for a walk. You know, when people are drinking, they don't really feel hungry in the same way. I'm someone that eats a lot of food and is always feeling hungry, especially with the amount that you exercise. So I'd find myself throughout the night, like even at like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, if I'm trying to stay for the whole night, I'd find myself hungry. So I'd go for a walk. And maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes later, come back after having like a little snack, coming back, and then people are suddenly out of nowhere really pissed. And yeah, that was kind of tough, I have to say. I was like, it was learning, you know, but I've learned to accept that and deal with it. And that has kind of moved me on to the point of maybe leaving at that point. You know, there's not much more that you're going to probably get from the evening after that point if everyone's got really, really pissed, unless the music's good or there's something else that's keeping you there. You know, it's not nice to just sit down drinking countless Diet Cokes, countless non-alcoholic beers, which cost you £6.50, £7, you know, and it doesn't have alcohol in it. So I've actually stopped drinking non-alcoholic beers. Pretty much anyway. I would drink them all the time because it made me feel as though I could, I was more part of the night. But now it's like I drink whatever I fancy, you know, fizzy water, Diet Coke sometimes have a non-alcoholic beer, but I just mix it up. But yeah, I was playing lots of games. I was playing lots of football with my brother, just, you know, doing nice, wholesome things that reminds me that there are so much amazing things that you can be doing that isn't drinking. It also made me realize how much my mind was mapped towards drinking. You know, my whole mental framework was based around this reward system that you work, you know, 5 days a week doing something that you really don't enjoy. And the thing that actually makes you feel good is knowing that you're going to have a release on the weekend. When you don't have that release, guys, this is why I'm now seeing clearly, okay? Because I'm consistently going through week after week after week without this kind of blitz, this crazy reward where you're flooding your system full of dopamine, serotonin, and basically alcohol for me released all of them. It made me feel so kind of intensely loving, euphoric. It was kind of like all drugs mixed together. So that's why it was so, the allure was sometimes hard to say no to. But yeah, it made me realize that the whole kind of work week, recovery, cope cycle that we find ourselves in, it is very much controlled by alcohol, and they know what they're doing. You know, they are profiting massively, billions and like hundreds of billions of pounds every year on alcohol, and you are the one who is blamed if you get yourself into situations, not the people that are profiting off it, not the companies that are making stupid amounts of money. You are blamed. But isn't it funny that the dealers are blamed for any issues that go on with drugs? So that doesn't really make sense, does it? You know, so it's interesting to look at alcohol and remember that it is a drug. It's a very powerful drug. It's the drug that, more than any other drug in the whole world, causes damage to the outside world. It doesn't only damage the user, it damages other people. Okay, like 35 to 40% of all domestic abuse cases are under the influence of alcohol. All homicides and all that sort of thing, I think it's around, you know, the same sort of percent, which is a lot, considering the fact that lots of other drugs like psychedelics, weed, and even if the harder stimulants, you know, they don't cause this complete and utter loss of control and aggression that alcohol seems to kind of cause. So I think it's kind of crazy that alcohol is the only one that's legal. The only reason it is because it's very easily regulated, and they're taxing it, and it makes more sense for them in terms of the profits for them to have one drug that is legal. So yeah, that's something to also be cautious of. You know, you still need to see alcohol as a drug. Just because it's legal doesn't mean that it's not damaging, because my God, it is one of the worst drugs that you can take for your body. Yeah, anyway, going off on that, I did realize that going out on these nights, yeah, it was tough, and I had to leave early. You know, it is what it is. I've accepted that. I leave a little bit early, and that was something that I never did. I would always be the last to leave. If I wasn't the last to leave, I'd just pass out there. I would never, ever take myself home. Never. I would never, ever remember going to bed. This was like, I'm not just someone that's drank a little bit and just gave up for their health. Yeah, I drank a fuckload, and I never, ever had control of how much I drank. So yes, it was a huge thing for me. It was a thing that I liked doing more than anything. You know, statistically, every single weekend I choose to drink. Therefore, I like to do that more than anything else. So I had to cut the thing out that I like to do more than anything else. So of course it was hard. It's going to be hard. Your life changes. However, it changes for the better. You can still go to the things that you want to do, but you can be so much more consistent in what you're doing. And you don't have this thing that's holding you back, and that is that you can blame for not doing the things that you need to do. So after the first year, I remember I was very kind of proud of myself and excited and celebrated the first year. The second year was more of the same. However, when it got to the actual second year, that's when first time I really struggled with not drinking. It didn't feel like an achievement. It felt like it was very clear to me that this was my reality now. And that's when the voice on my shoulder was just telling me to drink. And I had to fight through it. I had to do everything I could to remind myself that what I'm doing is the right thing. I had to start making videos like this. I actually started making videos like this 2 years ago. And this was just before my 2-year milestone. And yeah, I remember it being incredibly hard. I was emotional. But I anchored myself by reminding myself of all of the shit that I found myself in, all of the rock bottoms and the horrible situations, the loss of money, the loss of possessions, the loss of memories, the acting outside of my character, you know, and just feeling awful every single weekend, and then just being stuck in that cycle of work, and you can't get out of it. If you're in that binge drinking kind of cycle and you're working a job that you don't want to do, you are stuck in it because you don't allow yourself any time to think. Okay, we only have, if you completely cut the working week, which is work and preparing for work, and then you think about, you only have Saturday's the only fully free day. Sunday you're thinking about work. That is 15% of your life that is actually yours, that you have full autonomy over. That's crazy, guys. That's absolutely crazy if you don't like what you're doing. And then you got to factor in the fact that you, on average, sleep for 33% of your life. So you literally, of your waking life, of your waking existence, you get 15% of full autonomy if you're working a 9 to 5. Just consider that and think about how little time you actually have to think if you're also drinking. Because drinking means that you stop thinking. And then the next day, Sunday, is recovering. You might have also been recovering on the Saturday due to the fact that you drank on the Friday. You have no time to think. You're either occupied by work or you're occupied by thinking about work, preparing for work, cooking the night after work. And, it is something that we need to consider, because getting off of the wheel, if you're trapped in this drinking on the weekend cycle, as well as your job that's stressing you out and you're hating and you're not having any time to think, people. I've had a lot of time to think and I'm seeing life very clearly. So yeah, the third year was a lot better. I felt very proud of myself. But again, it's this thing that if there are certain events that you're invited to and you don't want to go, maybe don't go. I've stopped, I would have gone to anything back in the day because I knew that I was going to be able to feel a certain way. I would be able to have this lubricant that would make anyone interesting, anything funny, any event worthwhile. But when you take alcohol away, you actually realize that you might not have even wanted to go to this thing. So that's fine. Okay, do what you want to do what you love to do, and find your passions, because these will be so gratifying in a way that alcohol never could even get close to. So now, April 23rd is just around the corner. April 23rd is exactly 6 months between my birthday, and so basically it's like my second birthday. It's exactly 6 months away on the dot from my birthday. So it's quite funny that that's how it happened to align. Coincidental? Maybe. Something more? Hopefully. So when it gets to April 23rd, I know that it's 6 months exactly to my birthday, and I see this as like my second birthday, as I was born again. I released an EP called Born Again, and that was one of my most emotional and probably, one of my proudest pieces of work, and a lot of people have given me great feedback on it, and I'm very happy with it. But it was a very necessary and important project for me, because it was very much me reminding myself that I was born again and I've done the correct things in my life in order to take control. And now I know that I'm not going to drink again. I know for certain. I have had to think and envision the most awful situations if they were to occur. And I've said this in another video, like my family were to all die. I would have to make sure that I don't drink in that period, because I know for certain if I go back, the relationship is going to be exactly the same. Okay? If you have had no evidence you've got no evidence that you were ever able to moderate, you cannot go back to a drug and think that you're going to have a different experience with it. Your addiction, your negative relationship, your problem-solving behavior around that specific drug will come back, and it will come back harder than it ever was before, because you've got no tolerance. Okay? So you'll drink heavy that night. All of the bad things that you have been, that you've potentially forgotten about by that point, they'll come back with a vengeance. They'll come back because your addiction, your relationship has been waiting outside the door, doing one-armed press-ups, waiting for you to re-engage again. And when you come back, it is going to have control, and it can't wait for you to give it control again. It can't wait to have you back. It can't wait for you to take this thing that stops you from thinking. Because at the end of the day, addiction is a natural thing. You are taking this thing because it makes your immediate life better. because it means that you are no longer dealing with the things that you want to escape. But that escape, the trade-off, the fallout, is you're always going to bounce back and experience all that feeling of anxiety, all that feeling of depression, but it's going to hit you a lot harder. Because literally, let's say that you're up here, okay? You drink, you go down there, okay? And then the bounce back, because you've experienced this artificial amount of release, you're going to end up higher. And that's a constant cycle where you end up feeling worse and worse and worse, trying to suppress, trying to keep it down, keeping it down, but then it will end up rising and rising and rising until it will become too much to deal with. So we need to remember that. If you believe you will be able to moderate, and you have had absolutely no experience, no evidence that you were ever able to moderate, you're not going to be able to, sadly. This is the truth. You have to accept it. Other people might be able to drink in a more sustainable way. You have to accept that. You can't. If you can't, you can't. I've tried everything under the sun to moderate. I've tried watering down my beers. I've tried having a pint of water in between. I've tried waiting for hours after people have started drinking to start drinking. But it always turns into the exact same thing. Okay? You get your blood, the alcohol in your blood reaches a certain point, and once it's at that certain point, that's when you stop giving a fuck. Okay? So you'd get a certain amount of piss, usually about the 3 beer kind of range, 3 pints of beer, and you stop watering down the beers. You stop kind of drinking the pints of water in between. You try and catch up with people because you don't feel as pissed with them as them. Trust me, when you lose control, there's nothing you can do. I remember these awful situations where we would be like watching the football on a Sunday, and you know, everyone would say, oh yeah, let's have like 2 or 3 drinks, and it would get to like the 3rd beer, and I'm just there like, I want to have a mad one now. I can't stop thinking about the idea of just fucking literally throwing caution to the wind and going insane and drinking until blackout. And all I could think about was drinking more, and no one else felt that. And these were the moments where I was like, I've definitely got a problem, haven't I? Why can't I stop thinking about drinking more alcohol? And that was my problem. It wasn't I was drinking every single day. COVID, I was, and that's when it got really bad, but it was usually just binge drinking. You know, as soon as I started drinking, I couldn't really stop. I never understood 1, I never understood 2, but I very much understood 3, because 3 turned into oblivion every single time. And yeah, I know that I can't go back. I hope if you have a problem, that I'm sorry that I'm having to let you know this, but I'm saying the truth. I've been to meetings. I haven't been to many. I've done this all on my own because I knew that I needed to do it. Okay? I cared enough to change, and it's got to come from you. I'm not going to tell anyone to stop drinking. It has to come from you. If you know you need to stop, then that's enough. There's no one that's going to just be able to, like, if someone says, oh, I really want you to stop drinking, that's usually not enough for you to actually stop. It has to come from inside. You have to care enough. And if you know you've got a problem, then that's the first step. You have to accept it, and everything else will come. You know, I've now got to the point in my life where I know I'm not going to go back, but yeah, there are periods where it's still hard. You know, I do miss being in a pub and really enjoying it and being able to lock in and you know, everyone having this mutual changing of you know, the loss of inhibitions, the changing of the chemical balance, the gradually becoming more silly, reflecting on the past in a very kind of like joyous and reminiscent way. And those are the periods that I miss because you can't really feel that you're fully integrated in those nights. But I've got so much better at it. I've got so much better at it. I dance, I sing, I don't care about anyone else around me when I'm dancing, you know. I just let myself go. And at first that was hard, but I realized what's actually in the way. Like, why do I just have to rely on this drink to make me do the things that technically I can already do? You know, what's it really doing? It's just making you feel more confident, not thinking about like the consequences. What if you rewire your brain to realize that there is no consequences? You know, I don't care about looking a little bit stupid when I'm dancing. You know, we can get to this state. We can get to that state of relinquishing control on a night out without alcohol. It can happen. It will feel hard. You've got to see when, like, I'm going to reference Catherine Gray's book. She says that, you know, social gatherings and events are kind of like, they're kind of like going to the gym, okay? You haven't had much experience being in a drinking environment, in a drinking setting without alcohol. So when you're doing it without, it feels so foreign to you. You're like, what? How am I supposed to enjoy this? But realistically, anything you haven't done before is going to be hard. So you've just got to remember that the next time is going to be easier. The next time is going to be easier. You're going to get stronger. Your muscles are going to grow. The next time will be easier and easier and easier until you've done it so many times that that is completely natural to you. And that's where I am now. You know, I go to pubs and clubs and that sort of thing, and I don't see alcohol. When I walk down the like supermarket aisles, I don't see the alcohol on the shelves. I literally don't see it because it's not something that I can take. And that's an amazing thing to have realized, you know, that I have got to a place where I know that I don't drink anymore. My brain doesn't even see it as something that I can do. And, yeah, that's just, I'm proud of myself for that, actually. Got to pat myself on the back for that because, yeah, that is a testament to how serious I am about this, because my brain literally doesn't even see it anymore. So I know that I'm not going back. But it is hard. It is hard. But it gets easier and easier and easier. But you might have these moments, like Christmas is often hard because a massive thing that I love to do is drink kind of unusual beers that I've never had before. And it was like, Christmas is where you just kind of let go of everything. You eat like shit, you drink loads and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, you've just got to accept that that's no longer something that you can do. But there's so, like, you can eat so much more food. It's you know, I like food more than I ever liked alcohol. So I just put more focus on food. But as I've said in a previous video about my history with eating disorders, I have to be careful about that because I could regress into negative patterns. And I need to make sure that I don't put too much focus on food and then end up in a situation where I no longer have control over it. But yeah, I'm going to do a video on it being 4 years. But when you're giving up, people, just be bloody kind to yourself, okay? Watch films, go for runs, play games, talk to your friends that are going to make you feel better, be with family, eat lots of nice food. Don't care about gaining a little bit of weight. If you're exercising, it's fine. You're not going to gain weight anyway. But exercise, I would say, is brilliant for you because it gives you a feeling, okay? Running, going to the gym, doing both, eating lots of food and seeing that as like a lovely kind of like stacking of rewards. So you go and do a big session, then you eat a big meal. It's like, it's a great way to anchor you into what you're doing because you end up realizing, oh shit, I want to really be consistent. I want to focus on my sleep. I want to make sure that I'm being healthy. And that means that you will want to be consistent because you realize that it's very important to be healthy and that sort of thing. And I would basically also say, don't try and give up smoking and drinking at the same time if you smoke, because my God, it will confuse you. You'll be thinking, am I wanting a drink? Am I wanting a cigarette? I don't even know. Don't allow that to happen. Be kind to yourself. Allow yourself to smoke so that you can actually go out to these events and these pub like meetups with your mates and you don't feel like a complete and utter outcast. Give up smoking later. Think about that later. The most important thing right now is giving up drinking. But trust me, guys, I'm now seeing life a lot clearer than I ever have, and I'm feeling a lot more kind of cognitively clear. I've got a sense of clarity that is, yeah, something that I'm, you know, I've got to this point in my life and I never actually thought I was ever going to get here, ever. I thought I was going to be 50 with kids, still struggling with drinking and that sort of thing, and I've managed it now. We have the power to change. And yeah, I feel a lot more in the moment. I feel a lot more true to myself. I feel a lot more, yeah, just consistently happy. And that's a great feeling. I'm not recovering all the time. I'm recovering from workouts and that sort of thing, but I'm not making myself feel ill every weekend. If you're drinking, you're literally kind of purposefully, or you're not purposefully making yourself ill, but by drinking, you are ensuring that on the next day, you are basically feeling ill, feeling as though your stomach is fucked, you're potentially vomiting, you feel tired, you don't want to do any of the things you actually normally want to do. So just think about, like, is it worth it? Is it actually worth the night out and the money that you spend on how awful you feel the next day, and how it stops you from seeing the truth and seeing what you're doing? Your life will run away with you, run away from you, okay? And then you might end up being 50, 60 and being like, fuck, I ended up in that same job and I never got off the wheel. Why was that? Because they were using alcohol to control you and keep you in that system, okay? They are taking your money incrementally. Alcohol is a great, it's another tax. It's a great one to put your money back into the system, okay? They want any way of making you put the money back into the system. They don't want you to keep your money. It's time to be frugal. Step out of the cage and start seeing life for what it really is, okay? We have control. I love you all, okay? I'm never going to stop doing these videos. I love doing them. I love to create. And so do you. Peace out. Oh, I didn't do it right. Bye.